Hello, Year 6. Welcome back to another big read. It is our second big read of the week, and it is Wednesday, the 6th of January, that you should hopefully be doing this on. So let's have a bit of a look at our WALT for today. Today, in our big read, we are learning to use evidence to support our inferences. So yesterday, we started to look at predictions. Prediction is a form of inference, but we're focusing in specifically on direct inference from the text today and using evidence to support that. So what I'll be looking for in your responses and in your answers when you send them in to me is that you're finding evidence to support a given inference, that you're making those inferences about characters' actions, motivations, or opinions, and that you're using evidence directly from a text to support your inferences. So, a couple of bits to go over there. Inferences about character, actions, motivations, or opinions. Only word there that I think some of you maybe be slightly unfamiliar with would be motivations. So motivations are somebody's motives, their reasons for doing something. So you're making inferences about why characters are choosing to do certain things. The rest of it, I think you should be fairly comfortable with. We are pretty good with inferences now, but it's always worthwhile practicing it even more. So we only really read the first paragraph yesterday. Some of you may have chosen to read slightly further, but for the lesson, we only read the first paragraph. We're going to read a little bit further today, but we are going to start with that first page again. So chapter 1, Lying Low, page 1. So when we're talking about inferences, it's very easy to think that they're complicated and to get sort of stuck in a trap of thinking that they're a really convoluted and complex thing to do. But in reality, all you're really doing is essentially you're doing a sum. So you're doing one piece of evidence, add another piece of evidence, equals your inference. And that's all you're ever doing. So let's take a look at what that might look like for this first page. So on this first page, we might have evidence number 1 might be Elliot Hooper is getting into trouble a lot at school. I know that because it said that he was in the headmaster's office by 9:30 a.m. So that's him getting into trouble. We know he's getting into trouble a lot because it then says, which was in fact slightly later than normal. So that shows that him being in the headmaster's office in the morning is completely normal. Him being in trouble seems to be completely normal. So that's evidence number 1. Evidence number 2, his hair is a mess. Tells us that there. Elliot scratched his shaggy blonde head. So the word shaggy there referring to his hair, sort of uncut, unkept, and untidy. So if I've got that evidence number 1 added to evidence number 2, the inference that it equals might be that something at home is causing him stress and anxiety. He's getting in trouble at school. He doesn't seem to be taking care of himself. No one seems to be taking care of him before he leaves for school. That might suggest that something at home is causing him stress and anxiety. Remember, an inference is only what things might be suggested by the evidence. We don't know things for 100% certain. They are inferences we make based on the evidence we find. So that is a classic inference sum. One piece of evidence added to another piece of evidence equals the inference. Now, just like any sum, we can practice the sums by doing them a different way. So here is the second page of the story. So I'd like you to have a think and to write down for me as a bit of a practice, then we'll talk about it. What could go in the evidence 1 and 2 slots of this sum? So what piece of evidence added to what other piece of evidence would equal this inference? Mr. Sopweed isn't very well respected by the children at the school. So I'd like you to read over page 2, and you've got this in your packs that we sent home. You should have the first 5 chapters there all stapled together. If you haven't, though, it's on the screen for you there. So reading over that second page, what 2 pieces of evidence can you find that when put together can equal the inference Mr. Sopweed isn't very well respected by the children at the school? Just pause the video here, have a go at writing down what 2 bits of evidence you think you could find, and then when you come back, we'll have a bit of a talk about it. Okay, speak to you again in a moment. Okay, fantastic. So the 2 things that I think you can see there is you can see that Mr. Sopweed is being called different names by the children. In this paragraph here, there were many more creative names for Brizemoor's headmaster than the one his mother gave him. But the politest by far was "Call me Graham." So that's one bit. The children are calling him different names. That's not suggesting that they are respecting him that well, really. And then in the final paragraph here of this page, we have another teacher calling or shouting at Mr. Graham, which again isn't particularly a sign of someone getting much respect. So you could have those two bits of evidence, when added together, could equal that inference. So what I'd like you to do now on the page 3, I'd like you to complete the inference sum entirely on your own. So pause the video here and go through and think, right, what two bits of inference or what two bits of evidence can I find to make my inference? You want to actually work it the other way around. Make your inference, then think, right, what two bits of evidence are there to support that inference? When you've done that, start the video up again, and I'll speak to you in a moment. Fantastic. So the two that I was thinking of are, not everyone, sir, Elliot is said to mutter. Where is that snivelling runt of a pathetic excuse for a boy? They're my two bits of evidence. And I think, let me just go back. Take it back out of the screwed up bin. I think that those two pieces of evidence, when put together, suggest that the other teacher, whose name, where are we? I know it's there somewhere. Can't find it. But the other teacher who has come in is a really unpleasant character. I think that is supported by those two quotes. So, using those skills, I can go through to the next page now. Using those skills that we've just practiced, I'd like you to complete the following inference sums. So there are 2 on the next page and 2 on the page after that, making 4 altogether. You will need to pause the video on them so you can see them clearly. And then you're going to write those into your book and complete them using the text. And you can use the text from your home learning packs. So the inference sums I would like you to look at. The first 2, inference 1 plus inference 2, Mr. Boyle, that was his name, is not nice to the pupils in his class. I'd like you to find me 2 bits of inference that suggest that final point. So then here, and it should say evidence 1 and evidence 2. I've just realized I've made a mistake there. Evidence 1 plus evidence 2 leads to the inference, Elliot is on his final warning at school. You need to read through the full chapter. You can read the full thing of chapter 1 here. What 2 bits of evidence can lead you to that particular inference? Then the next 2, I will go back to that page, don't worry. I've given you the bits of evidence. I want you to give me what the inference might be. Elliot is on his final warning at school. Shut up, Graham, shouted Boyle over his shoulder, knocking Call Me Graham backwards. That first bit, apologies again, that's a mistake. It should be on the bottom of the last one. I cut it wrong when I cut and paste. So your 2 inferences, your 2 bits of evidence are shut up, Graham, shouted Boyle over his shoulder, and knocking Call Me Graham backwards. Those 2 bits of evidence, what piece of inference would they lead to? And then finally, I want you to have a go at creating your own inference sum to support this statement. Elliot is worried about something happening at home, but he is too nervous to speak to his teacher. So, pause the screen on those 2. Have a go at completing those. When you've done that, you can then start the video up again. I'll go to the next page and you can have a go at completing that one. That's everything from me. I'll be with you again with an English lesson when you've finished your big read. So I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.